And welcome to Hannity. And tonight, comedian Dave Chappelle under attack. A deranged amateur rapper now charged with assault with a deadly weapon after storming the stage with a gun-shaped knife and lunging at the comedian during a stand-up routine. Now, of course, the incredibly smart and stable ladies of The View, they knew exactly who to blame. Who do you think? Donald Trump?
What do you think is happening? I mean, it's happening on airplanes. It's happening on street corners. People are just running. I mean, the Hollywood Bowl, just ran up on there.
Things that could contribute to what's going on, the pandemic, the opioid crisis, the fact that Trump was out there saying things like, just knock the hell out of them. I promise you I'll pay for the legal fees when he had a heckler.
Okay, good. This is not a political thing. Come on, I know you want to wrap it all into politics, but this is really about security. Like, I don't understand it.
Why, it didn't happen before. It's happening.
Will Smith wasn't particularly right-leaning and running up on the stage and smacking Chris Rock.
No, but I do think that Trump unleashed some incivility, at least, in our country.
The noise. Anyway, sadly, joyless Behar has yet to recover from her very severe case of Trump derangement syndrome. Thankfully, Dave Chappelle, who I think is hilariously funny, is okay. However, his attacker is not looking so good. The assailant suffered multiple injuries during the attack, including an arm that looks now totally mangled. Simple lesson in life. If you attack someone, an innocent person, you might want to expect to get the living, well, Adam Schiff kicked out of you. All right, coming up, Piers Morgan, we'll get his reaction. Also, DHS Secretary Mayorkas on Capitol Hill again today, where he struggled yet again to explain why he hired a far-left activist to police your thoughts in Biden's brand new Ministry of Truth. The full lowlights, that's coming up straight ahead. But first, our top story tonight comes to us from the White House. Apparently, our cognitively struggling commander-in-chief thinks that Trump supporters represent the most extreme political faction in American history. And because of them, well, gay kids will soon be banned from going to school. They just make this all up. Take a look.
This is about a lot more than abortion. What happens if you have a state changes the law saying that children who are LGBTQ can't be in classrooms with other children? Is that legit under the way the decision is written? What are the next things that are going to be attacked? Because this MAGA crowd is really the most extreme political organization that's existed in American history.
In American history. Okay, we'll deal with that in a minute. Obviously, that's a predictable Democratic lie. We used to get it every 2 years, 4 years. Republicans, racist, sexist, misogynist, homophobic, xenophobic, transphobic. You know the routine. But remember, Obama said those people in Pennsylvania, the bitter ones that cling to their God, their guns, their Bible, religion, or as Hillary called, half the country, a basket of deplorables, or as FBI agent Peter Strzok once referred to conservatives as Trump-supporting, smelly Walmart shoppers. Now, according to Biden, 76 million Americans are the most extreme political faction in history. Half the country, Joe? Now, of course, everything Biden just said is just simple, disgusting political scare tactic, no basis in reality. Joe is demagoguing this potential Supreme Court ruling in the most dishonest way possible. In fact, late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg herself once all but predicted that Roe v. Wade would likely be overturned because it's on shaky legal ground. And for decades, get this, Joe Biden himself actually agreed with Sean Hannity, and he wanted Roe v. Wade tossed out, wanted a constitutional amendment. Where's the media mob asking Joe what made him change his mind? In the 70s, then Senator Biden stated, quote, "I don't like the Supreme Court decision on abortion. I think it went too far. I don't think that a woman has the sole right to say what should happen to her body." In the 1980s, he supported that constitutional amendment with the recently passed Orrin Hatch of Utah, a constitutional amendment that banned Roe v. Wade and letting states decide abortion law. And in 2006, Joey had this to say about abortion. Take a look.
Tell me about abortion. Where do you stand, and how will you face that issue as a candidate?
It's going to be very difficult. I do not view abortion as a choice and a right. I think it's always a tragedy.
Not a choice or a right, according to Biden. Even more recently, yesterday, Joe Biden referred to Roe versus Wade as the ability to abort a child, not a fetus, a clump of cells, but a child. He used the word. Take a look.
The idea that we're going to make a judgment that is going to say that no one can make the judgment to choose to abort a child based on a decision by the Supreme Court, I think goes way overboard.
And today, our very own Peter Doocy, he asked, circle back, Jen Psaki, chief propagandist, for clarification. Let's check out her answer.
Why is the president talking about the judgment to choose to abort a child?
Well, the president's view on a woman's right to make choices about her own health care is well known, well documented, well stated.
He said abort a child.
I understand, Peter, but what I'm telling you is what his position is.
And how can you guys say this is not a political issue when the president's statement about this talked about getting pro-choice officials elected?
Did I say it's not a political issue?
Yes, you actually said some call it a political issue. It is not.
Now, no one really knows what Joe Biden thinks about abortion or, frankly, anything for that matter. He may not even know any of this himself, but the marching orders have been issued, and now the entire Democratic Party is hell-bent on lying to you, the American people, and using this issue to inflame voters. Listen to Vice President Kamala Harris from late last night. Take a look.
Those Republican leaders who are trying to weaponize the use of the law against women, will we say, how dare they? How dare they tell a woman what she can do and cannot do with her own body? How dare they? How dare they try to stop her from determining her own future? How dare they try to deny women their rights and their freedoms?
If it is overturned, abortion will still be totally legal in most every state. Abortion access will exist for every American. So the question is, why are they demagoguing the issue and lying to you, the American people? Because every one of their policies have failed. That's the distraction. Now, is it an important issue? Yeah. Do people have strong, passionate views on it? Yes. Will abortion still be legal in America? Yes. States like New York, California, they'll have the most liberal laws. And while the American people are evenly divided on the issue of abortion, the vast majority of Americans are deeply worried about other things. You know, the economy, 40-year high of inflation, highest gas prices we've ever paid, high prices, the highest we paid for everything we buy in every store we go to, the disaster in Afghanistan, the war in Europe, the crisis at our southern border, poor leadership in D.C. Now, these are issues that directly impact every American every single day. And by the way, they know who to blame. Joe Biden is an unmitigated disaster, and every poll shows it. So while Democrats, the media mob, they want to inflame your emotions. They want you to focus on only one topic. They don't want to talk about any of the failures of Joe Biden. As a matter of fact, the mob and the media, they cover for Joe Biden. They'll tell you that the world is coming to an end. It's not true. They'll try to use abortion as a political wedge and lie to you, and then you'll realize, oh, abortion is still legal. The states decide. We will tell you the cold, hard truth, separate fact from fiction. We'll bring you the facts, and we will cover all of the issues that impact you, the American people, day in and day out. The left has lost touch with reality. They have no good story to tell. Obama, Hillary, you just need to tell your story. They don't have a story to tell unless they make one up. There's only one way to bring them back to earth, and that's for you, the American people, to show up at the polls, vote them out of office in 6 months. If you've not registered, I strongly suggest you do it now, because in these 6 months, we are now facing a very pivotal inflection point in this country, pivotal election, a turning point election. Now, get this. Right now, as of tonight, every single candidate that President Trump has endorsed in a primary, oh, look at his record, 55-0. Wow. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.